Shalom, 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 shalom. First and foremost, giving infinite praises, glory, and honor unto Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushua, Ba'ashem, V'chakodash. Giving double honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone and Shalom, and salutation to all you sincere Akim across the four winds, pushing this truth with sincerity of heart. I'm your fellow servant, Kasama God from the DC camp, coming at you through the spirit and power of Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahushua, by Hashem, V'chakodash, for the elect. Now, this is going to be another installment of the drums of liberation, all right? So basically, like I stated in the first installment, that for a while I have been doing basically the Watchtower. And so moving forward to phase two, I'm going to entitle these installments, the drums of liberation. All right. So it's really going from the phase of being at the Watchtower to basically hitting the drums of liberation, because the salvation of the nation of Israel, so-called Negroes, Hispanics, and Native Americans, is closer than ever. A lot of prophecies are coming to pass. Primarily, the destruction, the downfall of Babylon the Great. All right, aka the United States of America. It's so obvious now that you have to basically beat the drums of liberation. All right, so these are signs, and I've explained what the drums of liberation mean. Basically, these are sounds of freedom. All right, these are sounds of freedom. The nation of Israel, so-called Negroes, Hispanics, and Native Americans, are the elect, the 1/3. All right, the 144,000, 12,000 men from each tribe being a government body. We almost out of here. All right, and one of the things I want to talk about is the fact that the United States is crashing out from the inside out. Primarily, the most important part is economically. All right, we're well aware the United States, Babylon the Great, has collapsed spiritually a long time ago. To be honest, Babylon was never spiritual in the sense of righteousness. Babylon was spiritual in the sense of wickedness and witchcraft and a bunch of warlocks. All right, you find out the forefathers of the United States, the George Washingtons, all those guys were warlocks. All right, they indulged in witchcraft, the Freemasons of the highest order, 33 degree and above. So we we find out that the God and God we trust in a dollar bill, that God right there is the spiritual demon Satan. All right, thus the spider webs on the dollar bill. All right, so and then you have the owl on the right hand side. So again, this place has been exposed, and now it's crashing financially. Now, what you see right here is the U.S. debt clock. Major news. All right, the United States debt clock has reached an all-time high. This is $35 trillion. All right, $35 trillion worth of debt. So, as we know, this debt can never be repaid. You have a lot of things that constitute that added to this debt. You have credit card debts, you have home ownership crashing, and you have the student loan debt, which are not really going to be paid back. The majority of people that attain student loans are not paying it back, and not only in that are they not paying it back. You have interest that's being added to the debt that they owe. So now people trying to scramble to vote for well, it's not Joe Biden now, for Harris, the Democratic Party, hoping that the Democrats are gonna basically do away with this debt. But they can't do away with this debt because this debt belongs to the super rich of the world. All right, the underlings of the Rothschilds. That's their money, and they're gonna get their money back one way or another. All right, and the primary reason why you have this debt is the fact that first the United States stopped using a gold standard, all right, and started buying printed money from the Federal Reserve. All right, the Federal Reserve is a private institution. It's a private bank that basically ultimately belongs to the Rothschilds Inc. Now, you're not going to find that on paper, because what you're going to find when you dig deep into the Federal Reserve, you're going to see BlackRock and Vanguard, and so on and so forth. But then when you do more research on Vanguard and BlackRock, you will understand that those are sub banks of Rothschilds and Rockefeller Inc. Basically, all right. So the Federal Reserve belongs to the Rothschilds, to put it simply. And when the Federal Reserve prints money, now the United States Treasury, what they do is they borrow the money from the Rothschilds, aka Federal Reserve, and the Federal Reserve sells that money to the United States Treasury with interest. That's the reason why you have a debt. So when you want to go to war, like the Pentagon wants to go to war, when they use the GDP and all that, they need more money. So the money is printed with interest, is used to buy weapons from the military-industrial complex, and the politicians already got dibs and stocks in the military-industrial complex. So that's how the politicians get rich. They get rich off of backdoor deals and having stocks, and not directly, because the politician is not supposed to have stocks in a market. So basically, the politician will launder. It's called money laundering. So the politician will actually make his money off of having one of his family members or friends put stocks on a military-industrial complex, and then they get their money that way. So you won't be able to trace the money back to the politicians. So this is how corrupted the United States is. This is the worm of corruption that the Lord spoke of. And what's going on now is that, again, the United States is crashing out. Well, before we even say that, let's look up the word crashing out. All right. When you go to the Urban Dictionary, the word crashing out means to willingly or unwillingly enter into a situation knowing the outcome will not be good. Well, this is news that came out a couple of days ago, actually yesterday, out of Russia Today. All right, just showing signs that the United States is crashing out. As it says, indebted U.S. throwing billions at Ukraine conflict. All right, says Moscow. Washington has approved a new tranche of aid to Kiev on the day when its debt has reached a new milestone. So as the United States is being more indebted, Congress and the executive branch, the legislative branch, the judicial branch, all those three branches are in cahoots, and they're bankrupting their own nation, right? Because the politicians at the top are bought and paid for, and they're basically bankrupting and crashing out their own nation, and for the goal of and basically enslaving everybody to the Rothschilds via digital currency. Because as the dollar collapses, you're gonna need a new currency, a digital currency, which that's what the scripture is talking about in Revelation 13, the mark of the beast, which is the RFID microchip. That's going to be installed in your right hand, and then you're going to have the Neuralink that's going to be installed in your forehead, all right, as a GPS tracker, basically, and a mark of ownership that you belong to the Rothschilds, the top house of Edom, Esau, the so-called white man. Let's keep going. It says Washington continues to throw billions into the fire of the Ukraine conflict despite its ballooning debt. Russia's ambassador to Washington, Anatoly Anatov, has said the comments follow Monday's announcement by the Pentagon that the U.S. will send an additional $1.7 billion in military aid to Ukraine. And like I stated before, the Pentagon is basically using this money, right? They're using this money, and they're sending it to Ukraine for aid. So the money goes to the Ukrainian government, and the president of Ukraine, I forgot his name, but the short dude. So basically, he takes the money and he spreads the money amongst businesses, military industrial complex, again, organizations that sell weapons. So he'll buy weapons, and the rest he'll spread that money amongst businesses in Ukraine. Now, and like I stated before, the United States politicians, Democrats and Republicans, right, through the Pentagon, when they send this money, it's called money laundering. And I've explained it. They get their money back via having family members or friends that have stocks on the military industrial complex stocks, right? They have stocks with that, and they also have third party attachments, for lack of a better term, to these other businesses that will receive this money. And that's how the United States politician gets that money back into his pockets, because the politician can't just go to the Pentagon and take 1.7. They can't just take 1.7 billion and put it in their pockets, because they will be arrested for all kinds of charges, including treason, which the penalty is death. So you have to understand, this is how things work. All right. That's why voting and all that stuff is garbage, is bullshit. You so-called Negroes, Hispanics, and Native Americans, you need to wake up. Only the elect will wake up. You need to wake up and smell the coffee and understand what's happening and what has been happening. It says Washington continues to burn colossal money in the furnace of the Ukraine conflict, and it does so in the face of record levels of U.S. government debt, the diplomat told journalists. U.S. national debt has reached a new milestone, surpassing the 35 trillion mark for the first time, the Treasury Department stated on Monday. So that's basically what's going on. I mean, they're crashing out. All right, they're crashing out, and ultimately this is going to end into the Third World War. Right? You know, there's no other path but World War III, which that's according to the scriptures. All right. And when World War III starts, that's a clear sign that, we almost out of here, man. But prior to that, you're going to have a collapse of biblical proportion economically, not only here in the United States, but across the world. The only thing is, America is gonna get it the worst, because it's the most important place when it comes to prophecy. This is where you're gonna have the greatest deliverance of the nation of Israel. All right, the elect of the nation of Israel, and also the fact that the farming system is being completely taken over by Bill Gates. So he's gonna shut the farms down to make sure people have nothing to eat. So you're going to have, and then you also have the people with the highest level, the most idiotic and people in the history of humankind. So people that can't cook, they can't survive, they can't hunt. So it's going to be absolutely, it's going to be a nightmare when this society collapses, primarily the United States. When it finally just collapses, it's going to be an absolute nightmare. People are going to turn into savages quickly. This is Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 6 in the NLT, in the states, but soon their captive will taunt them. All right, meaning us, beginning with the prophets. Like this lesson right here is actually a taunt to Edom, Esau, and the dragon, right? The UN, the United States, the great red dragon. This is really a taunt, saying, hey, Esau, you going down. Although I'm still your slave, although we are still your slaves physically, we no longer your slaves spiritually and mentally. All right. And your kingdom is coming to an end, basically, by self-destruction. But soon their captive will taunt them. They will mock them, saying, what sorrow awaits you, thieves? Now you will get what you deserve. Right, because when you take the taxpayers' money, including Israelites, right, because we pay taxes. I mean, I always say paying taxes is a primary form of slavery. We pay taxes, right? We work hard, and all of our money just goes into paying taxes. And that money is basically money laundered. Weapons are being bought, people getting murdered, people getting, there's a massacre in the Middle East and a massacre across the world with your taxpayers' money by these thieves. And they get that money back by making backdoor deals with these companies. So this is the great thief, Edom, Esau. That's how he works. All right. He's a slimy snake, a serpent. It says, now you will get what you deserve. You've become rich by extortion. But how much longer can this go on? Right. So how much longer can you go on with this nonsense? Suddenly your dead ors would take action. Right? Who are your dead ors? Because you have all these nations that bought bonds, right? Which are debts, basically, because they had hope All these nations that are part of BRICS, once upon a time, they had hope. They still had hope on the dollar. But they understood that there was a change in the air. All right. They understood 10 years ago, the BRICS nation understood, I probably said 14 years ago, that there was a change in the air. A change was coming. And that the United States hegemony, was, coming to an end. But as any great empire, and the United States being the greatest empire in the history of humankind, it wasn't just gonna happen in a span of 2, 3, 4 years. That's why when we came in this truth, '07, '08, '09, I remember around 2010, things started to pop off in Europe, and we actually believed that, hey man, this thing was gonna be over, but Babylon the Great, it's not going down quietly, and and it's been like what it's been almost 17 years since. And you have the apostles that have waited longer than we have waited, the ones of us that came up in the 2007 era. So it's understanding that, hey man, this is basically a lifetime achievement. It's a lifetime mission. And you have to be in this thing, understanding that, hey man, this is something that I'm gonna have to do for the rest of my life, basically. It's not part-time, it's not partial. So you gotta dedicate your whole being to this thing. All right. This is Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 7. It says, "Suddenly your debtors will take action. They will turn on you and take all you have, while you stand trembling and helpless." All right, and that's basically what's going on. There's a lot. You talk about inflation and all that. Like, America doesn't really do export. America used to be the #1 nation when it came to exporting goods. That's what made the United States the greatest nation, financially, because the export was at an all-time high. But now all the United States does is import. All the industries that was here are offshore, and they went offshore for cheap labor, right? So now that this economy is collapsing, and the dollar's collapsing, these nations are not helping the United States. As a matter of fact, the BRICS nation are coming together to plunge the dollar, even further. You have the petrodollar that's being pushed out. These are moves that the dead oars, are actually making. They're taking action to sink this ship right here, right? It's happening. It's happening. Verse 8, "Because you have plundered many nations, now all the survivors will plunder you." Well, I mean, this was a well-known thing, back in 2000, in the early 2000, 9/11 and all that. It was always, well, we going to war and we going to get the oil, right? And the thing is that, man, the politicians was always talking that garbage about going to war for the resources. But I clearly remember, the citizens as well. That's why I say, listen, the judgment is coming is from the top down. All right. The citizens are as wicked as their politicians. I clearly remember the citizens having the same talk, saying, well, we going to war, right? And Bush and them are grabbing the oil. How come we ain't getting none of that oil? I'm like, what are you talking about? How come we're not getting none of that oil? Like, that oil is blood money. So you basically participating in saying, well, you mad. You're not mad because your money is being used to kill women and children and families, and bombs being dropped on families. You're not mad about that. You mad at the fact that your politicians who's out there massacring people are not spreading the wealth with you. So that tells you right there, man. Again, like I stated, the citizens is as wicked as the politician. So that's why this whole nation just got to go, man. From the highest to the lowest, they all just got to go. And according to the scriptures, it's going out by thermonuclear missiles. Let's keep going. Verse 8. Well, actually, yeah, but let's go back to verse 8. It says, "Because you have plundered many nations, now all the survivors will plunder you. You committed murder throughout the countryside and filled the towns with violence. What sorrow awaits you who build big houses with money gained dishonestly? You believe your wealth will buy security, putting your family's nest beyond the reach of danger." All right, so This is the mindset. This right here is without a doubt the American mindset. Um, and it's being called out by the prophets of the Lord. So, the Lord is going to bring harsh judgment to this place. Let's close out with Jeremiah chapter 51, verse 6 in the NLT. And it says, flee from Babylon, save yourselves, don't get trapped in her punishment. It is the Lord's time for vengeance. He will repay her in full. Babylon has been a gold cup in the Lord's hand, a cup that made the whole earth drunk. The nations drank Babylon's wine, and it drove them all mad, right? Democracy, right? Feminism. These things are destroying families overseas. Even in the Middle East, you have Arab women talking crazy, right? Filled with feminism. You have democracy running wild, which democracy only really, it really only turns into communism and hardcore corruption. So the nations are extremely corrupt. We know why. Example, you got the African continent with all those resources. All these damn countries over there in Africa call themselves democratic nations. And it's always what? Everybody at the top got all the money, and 80% of the population is just broke as hell. You go to the Middle East, same thing. Everybody at the top got money, everybody in the bottom broke as hell. All right? That's what you get with democracy. Democracy doesn't spread the wealth. You have crony, it's just cronyism really. That's all it is. It's cronyism. Let's keep going. This is Jeremiah 51 and 8. It says, but suddenly Babylon too has fallen. Weep for her. Give her medicine. Perhaps she can yet be healed. Right. Suddenly you get cronyism. Capitalism turns into cronyism. Suddenly no more middle class. Suddenly all the wealth is going to the top. And 80% of the population is broke, just like everybody else in the rest. You got to understand what's happening. You got people complaining on TikTok, Instagram about being broke and inflation and all that. What these people don't understand here in the United States, because, most of them don't travel. For the ones who do travel across the world or have, came from a different land, they understand what's happening. The United States is collapsing to third world nation type levels. That's the reason why you're struggling. It's not everybody that's struggling. It's the people that once upon a time called themselves the middle class, lower middle class, and of course the poor class. These are the people that are struggling, and everybody else, and the money is being funneled all the way to the top. All right, to the top 10%. But everybody else, 80%, is just struggling. And that is the same thing that has been going on across the world. 10% get the money, and everybody else in the bottom is struggling. All right. And you can even see that even in the relationship wise, right? The relationships are not working. Marriages are breaking up. The economy is crazy. Only the rich men really get all the majority of the women. Same thing in the third world nation. That's how it goes. So you witnessing a collapse of epic proportions. Verse 9, it says, we would have helped her if we could, but nothing can save her now. Let her go, abandon her. Return now to your own land, for her punishment reaches to the heavens. It is so great it cannot be measured. The Lord has vindicated us. And that's what Yahweh B'Shem Yahshua is doing. He's vindicating us, man. Because I remember, man, over a decade ago, man, almost 20 years, 30, 40 years, and we were a laughing stock amongst our own people. So-called Negroes, Hispanics, and Native Americans, we were a laughing stock. The nations, Edom, Esau, were laughing at us. Now all they do is send agents like Vocab Malone, COINTELPRO. All they do is send COINTELPRO counterterrorism like Vocab Malone to study, to basically study our teachings so they can use this against us in court to try to destroy our character and have us portrayed as, terrorists and villains and all that. But it's all good, though, because it's a great sign, man, that the Lord is closing the doors in this place and Esau is desperate. Vocab Malone and all these clowns even in Israel, because you got guys in Israel that are straight up COINTELPRO. They've been COINTELPRO for over 10 years, wearing garments and shit. Even them. It's all coming to an end. All the traitors are going to die. All you treasonous Israelites that sold out to Edom, Esau, your time is coming. You hirelings, you're going to die a horrible death. All right? Right along with your master. And basically, that's all I had in this installment of the drums of liberation. The reason why these things are happening, man, these are the drums of liberation, the sounds of freedom. It means that our Lord and Savior Yahweh Shai is on his way. So we have to, we have to look up, like it says in Luke 21. When these things are happening, man, look up. For your salvation is nearer than you believe. So with that, I'm gonna say, all praises be to Yahweh by Hashem, Yahushua by Hashem, V'chakodash, Kal Halam La Yahweh by Hashem, Yahushua by Hashem, V'chakodash. Double honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone, and Shalom and salutation to all you sensei Akim across the four winds, pushing his truth and sincerity of heart. All right, continue to watch. We almost out of here. Kasama God from the DC camp. Shalom.